Hello, San Angelo. In news, a man was sentenced late last week for abusing children, and 2 goats are on the loose. Also, the NFL draft is over. I'm James Bouligny.
And I'm Tessa Koskovich.
Before the news, Justin Jonas is in studio with Joe Hyde talking about the Coliseum Bond, and we'll get into that interview right after this message from Jim Bass.
Save big on new and used cars and trucks at BassBunch.com.
When anyone needs a new car or truck, where do they go?
That's easy, BassBunch.com.
What? It's BassBunch.com.
Everybody knows BassBunch.com.
BassBunch.com. Did I hear right?
There is only one place, BassBunch.com.
If you want to save a bunch of money, the only place to shop is BassBunch.com.
Well, hello, welcome to the show. My name is Joe Hyde. I'm the publisher of San Angelo Live. I'm with Justin Jonas, who is, of course, Justin and I share the Aggie Brotherhood, but also he is the executive director, president of the San Angelo Stock Show and Rodeo Association.
That's right, executive director.
Executive director?
Yeah.
I didn't know what.
Yeah, president is they do a rotation. It's not a paid position.
That's the volunteer.
Yes, volunteer.
So,
yes.
I hope I didn't step over your who's the current president now?
Cliff Caldwell.
Mr. Caldwell, I'm sorry. He is the executive director. But anyway, you grew up in New Braunfels. Just tell me a little bit about yourself. Give me a 30-second, who is Justin Jonas?
Yeah, I grew up in New Braunfels, kind of on a sheep farm. We showed lambs, showed in San Angelo. Actually, was fortunate to win San Angelo in 1988, a long time ago. And then after
you don't look that old.
Yeah, I'm over 50 now, so I got a lot more gray hair than when I started.
Yeah.
So. But after graduating from New Braunfels Canyon, I went to A&M, got an animal science degree. I didn't know what I was going to do after that, and I came home with one of my best friends, Kyle Smithwick, and he was visiting Angelo State for graduate school, and I met several professors there at Angelo State, and I got my master's at Angelo State, helped coach their judging teams, wool judging and livestock judging team, and from there I just never moved away. Really loved San Angelo. Fell in love.
So they came to you and said, "Would you like to run this big rodeo operation?"
They did, and it was kind of shocking to me because
you weren't that. This is like a 2000.
Yeah, it was almost 19 years ago, so it was a good time. A long time ago. But anyway, I always thought. Went to the rodeo, went to the beer barn, saw that. That's where all my friends were and stuff. I thought, huge deal here. And totally liquidated with tons of money, when I thought that. I started the first week, a good friend of mine.
So you're the brand new executive director?
Yeah, they've never had a paid position in my spot. It was always volunteers. The president every 2 years. They had a few staff members. And the staff members basically got a new president every 2 years, and it was really hard on them.
So this is like 2007?
Yes, 2007.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And after my first few days, I asked our secretary if she would give me a P&L every Monday.
Which is a profit and loss statement.
Profit and loss statement, that's right. Because we have chart of accounts, which were earmarked for every little thing, for the rodeo, the livestock show, the horse show, anything that happened out there, we'd have all broken up into categories, and there'd be tons of chart of accounts. And so I'd like to see where the money goes and see where we're at. And Linda said, fine, we'll do that on Monday. So I got the first one, and I flipped through all the pages, and at the very end, the last number was red.
So it was negative.
It was negative. And so I walked into Linda's office, and I go, hey, Linda, this is negative. And she goes, oh, yeah, Justin, we borrow money every year until we get to the roping fiesta. And then the roping fiesta pays enough money to where we get through in October until we start getting entry fee money from the livestock show in December.
So you're running it kind of like a farmer,
exactly.
waiting for the USDA to get out its allotments.
Exactly, yeah. Wait to go do your harvest to where you can get enough money and hopefully see how far that takes you throughout the year.
Right.
So I was shocked. I went and shut my door, and I called the man that convinced me to take the job. What the H are you doing?
Who was that?
That was Dr. Brian May.
Dr. Brian May.
I'm throwing him under the bus.
So you totally throw Brian May under the bus.
I'm throwing him under the bus.
I have a Brian May impersonation.
You do?
Yeah. When he came to you, he probably goes, hey, Justin, Brian May here. How'd you like to be the rodeo director?
Basically, it was something like that. And when I called him and said, "Hey, what'd you do?" He said, "I told him I didn't know how they're going to pay your salary, but you'd figure it out." That's were his exact words that he quoted.
So basically, you didn't get a job. You just got you got an Uber volunteer job to make your own way.
Right, but everybody wants to say, okay, now they did so well, and and this and that, but I'm not going to take the credit for that, because I think all that happened once I was in that position was everybody that was a volunteer and new volunteers came in just took a little bit more pride, and we started looking at it as trying to raise money. We had our mission of educating youth and preserving Western heritage is the Stock Show and Rodeo's mission. So we stuck to that part right there. So everybody that comes out there, over 1,200 volunteers that work the whole time, they work because it's free labor.
Right.
And they want to see scholarships.
Right.
So,
and let's stop right there. The scholarships are substantial.
Correct.
And you have a fairly large corpus to be able
Yes.
to pay these scholarships out 4 years. So a kid from a small town, around here, could conceivably get almost. I mean, it would pay for his dorm room for 4 years.
$10,000. Yeah, $10,000. And when we first started, we got all the applications in, and we gave one $4,000 scholarship away, and we had over 100 applications because we
Really?
didn't have any money. Back then we just started, but they knew we needed to do.
The last time I went to one of your scholarship presentations, it was kid after kid after kid. I was like, how do I get in on this?
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
That's why all of our volunteers. That's how we grow our volunteer base, when they see that the fruit, all their labor is what they've been doing.
But they're not like $500 scholarships. These are substantial scholarships that could really help you.
Yeah. Thursday night we're going to give away 20 $10,000 scholarships and one $20,000 scholarship.
Okay.
So
there you go.
That's how we've grown.
And that's coming out of the foundation, and
Yes.
the foundation is funded primarily through the rodeo
That's correct.
and the beer barn and probably the big the fairgrounds.
Yes.
The rides.
Exactly. Yeah, the midway.
Yeah.
When we first started, and I'll be honest with you, people have said stuff like, "Oh, the rodeo has all kinds of money; they can build their own coliseum." That's so far from the truth. I mean, we make anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million a year that we've done in the last 8 years. Okay, so that money, and we're a nonprofit, so that money goes to the foundation. But you see, we're giving $250+ million or $250,000 away in scholarships. Well, then we have also our premium monies during the livestock
Your
show.
premium sale, which is what the livestock show
Before the
is.
premium sale, it's premiums, like just for
okay.
breeding shows and stuff like that.
Oh,
They
really?
don't sell. So we give away over $100,000 of that just to the kids that come to show, like their heifers or something like that,
Right.
or they're breeding goats or breeding sheep, those stuff, because they're not market animals to where they can make the premium sale.
I see. I got you. So you pay them as if they were the
Yes.
market goat.
Yes.
I got you.
Yeah.
Well, the premium sale, obviously, that's where, there's two pieces to the public-facing part of this thing. We're kind of looking behind it, saying really the thing is for the association to fund this corpus for scholarships. But your two public-facing thing is the livestock show, which is in February, and the rodeo, which is in April. The livestock show, does that make any money?
No.
Not a thing?
It does make a little bit of money, because all we get is the $25 entry.
It's $25?
Yeah,
You could go win all thousands of dollars.
It's
I counted them this year at the premium sale. There's
Yep.
202 people that were on the auction block.
Right, that's right.
So to get there, all you got to do is put $25 up.
Yeah, but it's a
and,
lot
and
of
everyone
hard work.
got $1,000 at least.
Oh yeah, well it's $3,000 now.
Oh, really?
Everybody, yeah, and that's the premium sale. It's it's so important for us to grow numbers, because if let's say you're in Conroe and you have 3 goats,
Right.
Okay, or you have 3 kids and they each got a goat. You drive all the way over here to San Angelo and you stay in our hotels for 3 days of your kids' show, and if they make the premium sale, they go home all the way back to Conroe. Then they have to come all the way back to San
For another
Angelo.
2 days.
Yes,
Yeah.
and so what was happening, years ago, was they'd get like $500. A kid would get $500, and then a kid from Tom Green County would go in there, and I'm not mocking that. You need to take care of your own, but he'd get like $8,000 to $10,000.
Right.
And then the very next one would get $500.
Right.
So all of those kids from out of the city
That
or
didn't
real
that didn't
close,
have
that
any
didn't know anybody.
Yeah, they had any roots here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
didn't have any roots. Were not getting any money, and so that was going to fade away, and we were just going to have our own little show right here in San Angelo, and just have our local kids.
Oh, really?
But then, it started spreading out. We had so many businesses and so many businessmen and women that come and started giving money and started evening that. And then a couple of years ago, we even had the San Angelo Syndicate that comes in, and they only put money on those type of
and
kids.
the syndicate is a bunch of 40-something-year-old business owners that
In 30s.
got together,
Yeah.
and I think I was talking to them. It cost $5,000 to buy into it, and what their whole goal is to round it out down to the bottom.
Exactly.
And then you have like the other group that's the bankers and the car dealerships like Jim Bass Ford, like they were the
Yes.
number one guys this year, and they run their own little thing for the top 8, I guess. And they're actually starting to fill it out.
Everybody is.
Yeah.
And what it did was everybody understands that we need to be even to some point. I mean, I understand. Some of the kids from around here, local kids, well, they got to make good money. I mean,
Right.
because if they go to San Antonio, it happens to them.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Because San Antonio is like us. Whatever they bring, you get. There's a little bit of fee comes out in San Antonio, but nothing in San Angelo.
All right, so
100%.
A year ago, one of our guys had a grand champion steer here, I think, from Wall, and they were bragging that he got $1.25 million or something
Houston.
at the Houston Livestock Show and
Yes,
Rodeo.
that's right.
And then I learned later that all he got was $75,000.
That's
There's a
right.
cap,
That's right.
and
There
we don't
it is.
have a cap.
We don't, and that's what our businessmen and women love too. Whatever it says that animal brings, that kid gets 100% of that.
Okay, and so to put it in perspective, with Houston, they're capped at $75,000 for grand champion steer. What does our grand champion steer bring here in San Angelo?
Well, this past year was $44,000.
$44,000. Then that was probably a record too,
It was.
because it keeps going up.
Yes.
I mean, I remember the previous sale was $800,000. This year it was $1.25 million.
Yes.
So over 5 years, it's gone up $500,000.
Right. I remember when it was 100,000.
Really?
Yeah.
Back in
And-
2007.
a while back, but and everybody was excited then. And,
Right.
This town, there's been comments that it's not a rodeo town or something like that, and I can't relay that message enough. How important right now our rodeo is to not just San Angelo. Everybody outside of here knows our rodeo.
Yeah.
And knows how, how impactful it is and how good of a rodeo it is. And I don't want to say people take advantage of that here, but they don't. If they go to, I don't want to throw all my friends under the bus, but
Right.
you go to San Antonio or you go to
Well, we
Houston-
went to Waco. You and I
did,
we
yeah.
flew to Waco, and
Yep.
we went to one of their rodeos.
Right.
And I think technically the rodeo was correct. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they ran it pretty good, but the stands weren't as full. It wasn't you didn't have the same. I don't know. There's like an electricity in the air for our rodeos,
Yeah,
for our rodeo
it's kind of,
performances.
I know we're going to talk about the Bond, but it's kind of like a Hoosier Stadium that we have right now.
A
You know
Hoosier
that?
Stadium.
Have you surely watched Hoosiers? Isn't that one of your favorite movies?
No, it's not one of my favorite movies.
Why not?
Top Gun.
Oh, okay.
But it has
I
no.
got
But that
I
has
got
no
you.
stadiums in it.
Yeah, it didn't have no stadiums in it.
But it's
this,
like Kyle
we're right
Field.
on top
We're
of
like
each
Kyle
other.
Field, circa 1925.
Exactly.
We don't have a second horseshoe yet.
That's right. That's right. But it's right on top, and it gets extremely, extremely loud.
Okay, I
And
see.
the arena is small, but it's still a little bigger than Las Vegas.
So our arena, the seating is so close to the action that you feel like you're right there.
Yeah. Well, you get dirt thrown on you all over. I mean,
Yeah.
you get way up into the stands, and
Yeah.
people love that. The hardest thing that I want to work for about another 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I want to do because we raise sheep and I do other things, and I live out in the country and stuff, and I want to.
Grape Creek.
Yeah, I was hoping when I'm 56, 57, that I could just do what I've been doing with the sheep. And that was my goal. But the last 6 years, 10 years ago, we decided, something we got to do. We got to. Rick Wise from the city went with me and Jimmy Barton and my president, Irvin Schwartz, and we drove down to Corpus because it was one of the freshest buildings that held 7,500 people.
In a kind of a comparable sized town.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes, and it had a new, brand new facility that
It was a brand new Coliseum.
Coliseum.
Okay.
And it actually built a convention center with it at that time. But it had 7,500 seats, and we thought, let's see what that costs, because we thought at that time our 5,000 we needed at least 7,500 seats. You know, and so we looked at that, and at that point that was about a 7-year-old building,
Right.
and it was a $71 million investment that the town did at that point. for that building.
$71 million for 7,500 brand new facility
facility
with a convention
with
center.
a convention center.
Okay.
Yeah. And so we came back, and then we went to the city, but then we had all these water problems, we had infrastructure problems, and we knew that. And we knew that we had to have water. Everybody knows that. And so we had to fix those issues.
Right.
And the city's been working on that for the last 8-9 years.
To put it in perspective, the city has been working on the first issue we had was the radium in the water in the Hickory Aquifer. So they had to build a whole. They actually have 2 water treatment plants over here off of Avenue P.
Correct.
There's 2 of them there, and that was very expensive. That was the Hickory project initially was 121 million. So and they bonded the city up on that. And then the second problem we were looking at wasn't really a problem. We manufactured it, but if you remember, we were going to try to do the reuse of wastewater. Clean.
Oh, yeah.
The potty water, clean the potty water. Well, they figured that out. Let's not clean the potty water in an expensive $250 million water treatment plant. Let's let the Concho River do it. Let's put partially treated water into the Concho River, get the TCQ to approve it. It goes down there, it gets cleaned, and we suck it out of IV, bring it back to our water thing, and of course send it through the water treatment plant. And that was a smarter way to do it. Sure. So we solved those 2 problems with water. Right. And then we also had the West Texas Water Partnership, where we're haggling over getting the Clayton Williams water out of Port Stockton right now. So we've expanded the well fields at Hickory. So we've done a lot of capital investment in water. And so you're holding off. You won't. You see all this money they're spending.
And our potholes are Chadman. I mean, driving to work. I mean, every day is just bouncing out. You see things that have to be fixed.
Right.
And then now they're getting fixed, and if they're not fixed, they're earmarked already that are going to be fixed. But then another thing hit us a few years ago was what Abilene.
Was what?
With Abilene.
Abilene?
Yes.
What did Abilene do?
Well, Abilene's invested over $300 million in their fairgrounds because they want what we have.
So they want to build their own rodeo up there.
They want what we have here in San Angelo.
Okay.
That started, 93 years ago, and during the Depression. And the reason that our whole stock show and rodeo started was a civic events director for the city at that point decided, let's have something where we can bring everybody together and they can socialize and hopefully lift their spirits.
Okay.
You've been out to the fairgrounds during the rodeo. What happens?
Well, back in 1930, it was 32.
Yeah.
So the first year they did it, this is interesting.
Yeah.
I do trivia at my bar, right? So I had to look this up. In 1932, the first fat show and they call it fat stock show and rodeo happened down there by SAC, by San Angelo Country Club. It wasn't even, and then they moved it the next year up to where I guess we are now.
Yes, right.
So in 1933 was the first year they had it up there. So they probably just had a couple of tractors and some plows, and they plowed up the thing and had it.
And they had a little beer shack and. For
so
beverages.
So the beer shack is, the beer barn is kind of like a tradition.
That's right. My wife, she grew up here in San Angelo, Lakeview area.
Right.
And, she talks about, as a kid, seeing the Ferris wheel and see all that stuff coming. It's just so excited. It was lifting their spirits, and it still does the same exact thing today.
I would even go further to say that the rodeo today is a gigantic business networking event. What happens in the arena happens in the arena. I mean, you could be having anything going on in there, but the business networking that comes around it, because the rodeo is so important and it has so much, importance to the rodeo sport, it makes it interesting. But most people come in here and hang out at the wine tent, the beer barn, or the Shoot Club, or or if you're really rich, the Spur Club, right?
Well, see, I think
they won't let me in the Spur Club, by the way.
Got to quit talking about the rich only getting catered because that's not true. The Spur Club was built when the Spur was built with the half-cent sales tax.
Right.
26 years ago. It was $13 million. The Spur was. Well, then an individual decided to invest their own money, and they put that little club up there. It wasn't taxpayer dollars. It was called Spur Club. The only problem was it only holds about 100 people.
Oh,
you know,
so you
but
have to
it's
make
a beautiful little bar, and it overlooks the Spur Arena, and you can watch it from that if there's a horse show or a roping or something going on. It's really neat, but you only have 100 people.
Right.
So obviously that just fills up like crazy.
Right.
You know, and then we sell memberships, and then they have they've got to get one guest pass or something, and the next thing you know, there's 350 people up there. And they're all hot because the air conditioner can't get cold enough. So, you know, we opened up the shoe club. You know, last year was its first year. This was its second year. In the wine tent 5 years ago. You know, it's all about like you said, networking, but experiences.
But the other thing is, it's important to have the rich people there because the business networking is better when you have everyone there. So if you're a young entrepreneur trying to get something done, you could be in the wine tent making a deal in there. Oh yeah. And I made a deal this year. I didn't go to the wine tent, the beer barn as much as I usually do because I have to keep up my appearances. Sure. But I mean, I booked a band. Right. When I was in the, I sat there and I was throwing them out there.
Did you do it on a cocktail table?
I did.
On a napkin.
I was talking with Cody Baker. I don't know if anyone knows Cody Baker, but he founded the Crude Fest, a big music festival in Midland. And I'd worked for him, years ago at the Lone Star Music Fest here at the River Stage when he first got started. Sure. And so we've known each other a long time. And I said, man, I got this new bar, and I need to get some Texas country in there. He goes, hey, well, why don't you call Rich O'Toole, and why don't you call this guy, and why don't you call this? And I said, all right. So I started booking bands right there.
Oh, yeah, there's people doing that all the time.
Yeah, so there's all kinds of deals that are being made, and that doesn't get put into the economic development calculus, really. Right. But it's important because there are people coming from all over the region. Right. So
there has to be something for people to do. Okay. The Coliseum is over 70 years old now. It's been touched one time.
What was it touched?
They expanded the lobby. That lobby that's there now when you first walk in.
Right.
That was built. And that's
that little piece that comes out. Wow.
Yeah, kind of like a little facade. They closed it in, and they put 2 other little restrooms on each side, left and right of that, when you walk in.
Well, you told me something, I don't know, months ago. So you said that when they built the Coliseum back in 1958, they built the thing. And the rodeo, their first rodeo there was 1959.
Right.
I know that from the trivia.
There you go.
But you said that a surveyor staked the center.
Very center.
And then they ran the wire out.
Plumbed a line all the way out. And they did the radius with that line.
And so there was kind of like
this. Started building from there.
So back in 1957 or 56, when we started doing this, it was like an agile construction project, and they were doing the blueprints as they went along.
Yeah.
Interesting.
How much do you think it cost when they built it back then?
I don't know, a couple million.
$1 million even.
$1 million even. Wow. Why can't we do that now?
Oh, wouldn't that be nice?
All right. So, what is wrong with the current? I mean, we like the seating inside of it. What is wrong with it right now?
We need more seats. And
you
need
more
restrooms. We need handicap seating. We need all of that stuff done and done right. And the restrooms, we need a ton more restrooms. I mean, right now it's 5,000, and
5,000 people.
5,000 people can fit in the Coliseum.
Right.
But if you walk out into the lobby, and we try our best because we've hired the best to run the rodeo, the announcer, sound guy, Josh Hilton.
Yeah, Josh Hilton.
I actually did his first contract on a napkin.
Did you really? At the beer barn?
No, it was in.
It was at the Waco beer barn.
Yes, it was up north, and I saw him at a rodeo, met him at a bar, stuff like that, and we did that. Yeah. And he's the best in the business. Right. Boyd is the best in the business.
Boyd Paul Hamus, who's the announcer, has been there forever.
He's been there for 25 years. Yeah. So we try to make it as action-packed as possible.
Let's stop right there. When Boyd, I have experience with Boyd from the Bad Company Rodeo days, which I think is a tale that people ought to understand.
You bet.
When I worked as a consultant for Mac Altizer Bad Company Rodeo from like 97 until 2004. So
really?
Yeah. And Boyd I didn't know Boyd, but he was the announcer. I was hardly ever, I mean, I went to maybe a third of the rodeos because I was still flying the Air Force. But a lot of things on San Angelo Live that you see today that we do, I learned working for Bad Company Rodeo. I mean, a lot of audience engagement stuff. But
they're broke now, or they went broke? Never mind, go.
There's no more Bad Company Rodeo. Well, they're
I know.
selling hats, I
Yes,
guess.
they are. They're nice hats. They're good.
But yeah, Mac's retired.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was going to say back in those days, Mac and all the people that run the rodeo, like Bobby Paul running the George Paul.
Yes.
The George Paul Memorial Bull Riding in Del Rio, Texas was the largest standalone bull riding event in the rodeo world. I mean,
Huge party.
PBR was there, and of course it helped. And then I started there even in '94. That's how I got affiliated with all this stuff. I started selling T-shirts of all things at my first George Paul was 1994. I'm selling T-shirts with a buddy of mine from College Station, and anyway, there was a guy there named John Ludlam. He was selling T-shirts too, and of course we were professionals. We came out of A&M. We built the CC Creations line at A&M, right? And so we had the lattice. We had the good look. We go to the Corona Club and recruit the girls to sell with us, and we had just one design, front and back, and it was $16 a shirt, 2 for $30. And I mean, I've never seen so many people at a livestock event ever. I mean, but the thing is, the stands it was like a rickety old Val Verde County fairgrounds. The stands were like made out of wood, and I mean, if you put too many people in there, it looked like it was going to fall down. And after the go around, you had like a Friday night go around. We had 2 go rounds Friday night, 2 go rounds on Saturday, I think 1 on Sunday. But Friday night, after it all cleared out, we're packing all the shirts up, and I kid you not, there's 4 feet of Coors Light cans underneath the stands. When I moved to Del Rio and I was stationed at Laughlin, I learned a lot about the commissioner's court. The county controlled that, and Mac Altizer and Bobby Paul, the guys that were running the George Paul and the Dolly Goss rodeo at the time. They would go in and they begged the commissioners, please, can we put some money into the fairgrounds? We need to do this. We need to build better stands. We need to build box seats, to make it more. And they wouldn't put a dime into it. Fast forward to today, this is like, I remember they were asking, I was following it pretty closely up to about 2004. And I just kind of dropped out and moved up here. Didn't think much more of it. But today, the George Paul is a shadow of his former self. It's nothing like it used to be. It doesn't have the pizzazz. I mean, of course, part of that was probably because the cross-border, you can't go to the La Macarena and do the Calcutta, that kind of thing. But still, they never put any money into it. They just assumed that this thing's going to always be here, and the stands got ricketier and ricketier, and the people that were running it kind of lost interest. I mean, you can't say Bobby Paul lost interest. He kept doing it, but I don't think there's a whole lot of like, let's keep hard charging, let's go to the next level kind of thing. They just kind of we went in the caretaker mode.
Well, and the ones that were young that were going to that event, they got old now, and they faded out, and there wasn't ever anything to rejuvenate it to keep young people coming
in. They never rejuvenated their audience. One thing I know about the rodeo here, and this is me looking at a lot of, I look at things like data. If you look at Snapchat inside the Coliseum and you see what people are snapping, it's all young people snapping about the rodeo. And most of it saying, hey, I'm here, look how good my seats are. That kind of thing. That's really what they're trying to say. But they're saying, I'm part of it, I'm here.
Right.
And
it's their rodeo.
And they're on Snapchat, so that's not people over 40.
No, you're right. You're right. And that's, our whole goal in life is to raise kids and have them want to stay here in San Angelo. Right. And keep growing.
At least come back up.
Yeah, if they don't go to Angelo State and they go somewhere else, we want them to come back and be citizens and high quality citizens for our town.
Right.
And when you have, this is what I've told a few people, if I have a business and I have salesmen working for me, okay, that keep me alive,
right,
and my best salesman outperforms everybody else by 2, 3, 4 times, I'll go to him and I'm going to say, what do you need? Do you need anything?
Right.
I want to give you some more resources because I don't want you to just be 2 or 3 times better. I want you to be 100 times better.
Or worse, you don't want them to leave.
Right. Don't want them to leave and go work for your
competitor.
Neighbor, your competitor.
Yeah.
Exactly. So when the stock show and rodeo is your biggest economic impact driver, okay, and there's been some people that don't know what an economic impact. Well, that doesn't benefit me. I don't want to pay the little bit of tax per month because it's not going to benefit
Well, let's stop
me.
right there. I'll tell you how it benefits. We talked when I interviewed Tom Thompson. You can go back and look on YouTube, and it's an interview with me and Tom Thompson. I asked him the question: how does the rodeo benefit the guy living on Canyon Creek in Southland who never went to the rodeo? And he pretty much said, here's what it does. It brings in sales tax revenue. And if you look at during the stock show and during the rodeo, the sales tax revenue increases. When sales tax revenue increases, it takes the pressure off property tax. Exactly. And for an example, the city of San Angelo is now, just like most municipalities, they're now cutting into sales tax revenue to pay for the basic services of fire protection and police protection. That's right. And so we need that sales tax boost from the rodeo to help us there. I mean, it does, exactly. And it helps us more than whatever the guy on Canyon Creek, his house is worth $300,000 maybe.
Right,
all right.
Right.
So what is he paying extra for the bond?
7 something a month.
7 cents.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's certainly the benefits are greater for him, and also, I hate to sound like I'm a shill for the rodeo bond, but I really think it's a right here, right now, already made way to enhance our economic development that we have total control over.
You're right.
You know.
You're right. And it's the second that it's finished, it's going to be more economic impact.
Right.
I mean, we get people from other countries that call the office that want to come to the rodeo. I mean, not just other states. And we are the 6th largest rodeo.
Well, let's go over that. So you say you're 6th largest, and you always hear, rodeo people are always saying 5-time NFR qualifier, 3 double stars, and a gold buckle. You don't know what the heck it is, right? But when they say you're the largest, 5th largest, but then I always hear you're the 4th best. I mean, all that stuff. Well, how's that all?
Well, it's strictly measured on dollars, is on your size, the dollars of your purse.
Okay.
And
that's what you pay the rodeo contestants.
Rodeo contestants. The
Okay.
purse money is like if somebody wins the bareback riding, how much money is he going to get? So, the thing that the association has always done is they focus on quality of the event. Even though we got 5,000 seats, we hired an announcer that's the very best, the sound guy that's the very best, the videographer, the running all the cameras. This year we brought in a sky cam. I don't know if you watched it on Cowboy. One of those great.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that's something like you would be
better than the arm.
That's right. Yeah, arm goes over.
Yeah.
And so we hired the very, very best, and we pay the stock contractor a ton of money to bring in the best livestock.
And then he brings in other stock contractors.
Exactly.
And it's very
the best of the best.
And in the rodeo world, that's important because you also not only do you have the rodeo cowboy riding the rough stock, the bull or the horse, but you got the people that are into trading horses and bulls, and so that brings in money too.
Well, and the thing is, I mean, where our purse size is where they measure us, the award, the money, and so when you measure that versus Houston, which is number 1, then Calgary is number 2. Their purses are over $1 million.
Canada.
Wow. Yeah. Very good rodeo. And then you look at San Antonio 3rd, and then Fort Worth, us, and then you got other Denvers, you got Cheyennes, you got all those other big venues that that have million plus people. Not Cheyenne, but I mean they're kind of the like you said with the bull riding down in Del Rio. I mean they are a very small town, but they kept their infrastructure growing, and they can hold 70,000 people there.
Right.
I mean, and they bring them in, and it is a huge economic impact as well. I mean, to Cheyenne, it's the whole deal.
Right.
But this town was built on downtown bars and cowboys that drove in, rode in and stuff like that.
Well, it started off with Fort Concho.
Yeah, you're right.
And then it went into fur traders and
exactly
mohair and all that stuff.
Western way of life.
Right.
What I was trying to get at. And that's why we want to preserve that, because we have that niche here in town. And if we don't do something, our neighbors that are 90 miles up the road from us are going to steal it.
Okay.
It's plain and simple.
Story time. And I've pieced this together. A lot of the players have died, but back in the 70s, there was a move. They said, hey, we got this nice rodeo going on. Why don't we become an equestrian center? Why don't we get these horse shows? Because, fancy horses are very expensive. You watch Yellowstone, Taylor Sheridan, he does all the cutting horse stuff. And anyway, so they made the chamber crowd, I'll just call it the good old boys. They said, hey, GTE Southwest, can you help us out? And the president of GTE Southwest said, sure, I'll get you the grants and the money. We'll build this equestrian center up there, probably at the fairgrounds. And they were cruising along on this project. And for whatever reason, the guy who was running GTE Southwest got fired or quit or was no longer there. And he dropped it. There was no more money. And so they dropped the equestrian center idea. And guess who has it now? Abilene. And they got
it's the 4-H horse show.
4-H horse show.
It's just like our livestock show, that we have, and it is huge, because all of the horses. The problem that we don't have enough infrastructure in the fairgrounds because we don't have enough horse stalls to stall them. There's that many.
Horse stalls would seem cheap.
Well, yeah, you would think. And RV spots, horse stalls. They stay in a hotel, but they also bring in their RV to plug so they can go and back and forth change and do stuff like that.
Right.
And it is. I'm not familiar enough with Abilene's government, but I would bet that is the single largest economic impact for the city of Abilene.
I heard it's big.
That 1 week of show.
And so, if Abilene's built this large infrastructure that can run a rodeo, and they've already kind of got the horse show going. Abilene has it's on an interstate.
Yeah, and it's only a matter of time because they're at our rodeo or they're watching it, and you'll see whatever we had this year.
They'll have it next year?
Yeah, a lot of times that's what happens.
They have like a small rodeo?
It's small, yes.
And, the other piece is, Lubbock's looking at building a huge convention center type Coliseum thing.
I think it's a whole fairgrounds.
Yeah. So they're looking at jumping into some of this too. Pretty soon we're going to have too many rodeos in Texas.
Yep.
Right?
Well, yeah. Yep. I mean, the more rodeos is fine, but you just want to be the best one.
Right.
You know what I mean? You want to
the biggest one.
I mean, the more rodeos is just more recognition. Like you're saying, Taylor Sheridan, in the 80s or it might have been in the 70s when Urban Cowboy came out, in the 70s or 80s.
That was early 80s.
Early 80s. Okay.
You're looking for love in all the wrong places.
That's right. And
that was Gillies. Yeah.
Yeah. And there was a spike that happened in Western apparel. It was a huge spike, and rodeo got very popular.
And so did country music.
It's country music, everything. Yeah. And then in the last 4 years with Yellowstone, with 1883, 1923, all these shows and stuff.
Even Landman sort of kind of.
Even Landman, yeah. I mean, he's wearing a hat the whole time. Yeah. It is increased recognition of the Western way of life.
And you also have like boots like Tacovas, which that's a brand new company pretty much that's tearing it up in the footwear for Western wear. Cinch.
Cinch, yeah. They were kind of brand new, 10 years ago, and look at them now. I mean, it's just multi-billion-dollar companies now.
Well, before we go, one last thing. And I don't think a lot of people understand this, but usually when the city has to do a project this big with a rodeo or with the Coliseum, they have to go hire consultants, hire engineers, make plans. It takes years and costs hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of dollars. You did all this. What you did this yourself, and the Rodeo Association paid for it. Am I right?
Right. Well, we were afraid that if an engineer came in there, he was going to say, you need to demolish it. And
really?
We knew that a brand new one was out of the picture, and we were going to see if we were going to sink or what was going to happen.
So this was
about 3 years ago.
So this is after you visited the facility in Corpus Christi, and you said, well, this thing that cost them, $75 million, if we built that today, it was going to cost, $400 million?
Yes, $300+ million.
$300+ million for a brand new Coliseum and convention center today. So you said, all right, we can't finance that.
No, can't finance.
All right,
so we brought in this engineer to look at the Coliseum and tell us what the deal is. Well, when that thing was built, mainly out of concrete, you've been in there, you've been underneath, and all that. The concrete that was built back then that they poured is a lot stronger than today. And he came in, and the engineer said that thing, the bones of that is as strong as any brand new building that can be built. And we were shocked by that. And we said, okay, we need at least 7,500 seats. And so he took the plans and he drew everything, and when he ended up getting 8,000 seats, so 3,000 more seats of grandstand seats. Because if you look on the north and the south side, you see how our seats go way up high and then they come way down when you go to east and west side.
Right.
Well, all he did was he just matched those, and that was the easiest way to do that. And then he calls me and he says, "Look, you're going to be here at this point. This is all the grandstand seats you can put in. But you can put skyboxes on top of that." And he told me for like $22,000 a skybox, he could put 50 skyboxes up there. And that you can't put any more grandstands. He's each have 20 seats in them
Right.
that go out front. But then it goes back to where you obviously ain't gonna be able to see the rodeo from the back of the skybox. So it'll be video screens and stuff like that. But you could walk to the front and go
see
sit
it.
down. So for that kind of money,
Kind of like the Legacy Club at A&M at
Right.
Kyle Field.
Right,
You
right.
can't see it in the back of the.
No.
But you can walk forward and see it.
and then the what you were talking about earlier, networking type of deals. The very, very top floor would be a really cheap ticket, but it's going to be standing only. There'll be a few seats, and then it'll be in the back behind it, a big area where 300 people can gather and watch screens, and they can network. And they can go walk up and watch some of the rodeo, or go back and watch it on big screens and stuff, and eat and drink and stuff like that during that.
Kind of like
It's
at
been a
Waco.
great experience.
Waco had that. They
a
had,
really nice one. That was the
Yeah.
best thing I thought
yeah.
at Waco.
They had a room. I guess it was in the suites where they had an open buffet meal
Right.
for sponsors and their guests, and you could just mingle around there and had TVs up, so you could watch the rodeo all day long if you wanted to up in there.
Sure.
So,
And what will happen with people are worried about box seats and stuff like that. A lot of our sponsors are probably going to want to move and have their own suite. So that's going to open up tons of seats down below too with the boxes. And a lot of people just love that box seat, and they're probably not going to want to give it up. And we're not going to ask them to give it up.
right.
We're not going to.
But
the
you're
box
going
seats-
to give them an opportunity to go up
Exactly.
north
Exactly.
or go high.
Yes. Yeah. And some people have said, we heard that there's going to be a row taken out of the box seats. I'm never going to take a seat out. We need more seats.
Right.
So all of those seats are still going to be there. There's going to be over 3,000 more grandstand seats. There's going to be over 60 handicap seating. Right now there's 12 with no accompany seating, and there'll be 60 handicap seats with a company seater that can
Right.
sit with them. So that's a huge thing. Our restrooms, the lines are terrible.
The women's restroom is a problem.
It's a major
When I run back and forth between the sides, and you have to like wait to get cut your way through the line going to the restroom.
Oh, I know, and that's why we put that. All we could do during the rodeo was kind of give facts because of some bond law that you can't try to persuade. You just
Right.
give them facts, and so we would put a sign right there by the restroom that
So,
shows.
we'll
right
fix
now-
this.
Yeah, currently
Vote
there's-
for the bond. This will be fixed.
Yeah, currently there's 50 toilets, and there's going to be 250 toilets. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
That's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So.
That's good.
But and I want to say this, it's not just the rodeo that's going to happen with this. I mean, promoters are going to see a 10,000, actually 12,000 if you use people on the floor. See that as a venue and see that as an opportunity.
A little bit on that. Yukio Kananuki over at San Angelo Performing Arts Center. The trend in live music, live entertainment, is for these large companies like Live Nation. They'll take ZZ Top, for example, and say, all right, we're going to put you on tour at all our managed venues. Well, we don't have any managed venues in San Angelo because we have nothing. The Murphy's probably the largest for a concert, and it's 1,200 people, 1,300 people. So conversely, the Buddy Holly Center in Lubbock is probably 2,500 people. So it has a management deal. So you can go to Lubbock and see a Jeff Dunham performance, the ventriloquist. He's really funny.
Sure.
Which, by the way, if you don't see Jeff Dunham live before he retires, he is hilarious. But who's who of rock and roll and country will play at Buddy Holly. They'll skip over this town because we don't have a large enough venue, indoor venue. So with the floor seating, you can go over 10,000 seats in there. So that would be huge. You can probably find a management company that's going to be very interested in it if we get this thing going.
Exactly.
And then we'll bring in some big guys.
Another thing that happened too, when the half cent sales built the Spur and built the livestock barns,
Right.
the city asked us to manage those buildings. And even to the people that are saying, the Coliseum doesn't have things going on very often in there. Well, we've been managing everything else around it.
Except the Coliseum.
Except the Coliseum. And we have things going on over 40 weekends out of a year. And most of the weekends, there's more than one thing going on. Like so this weekend, we have two events.
Yeah, belts, buckles, and pearls, right?
Yeah. And then we have a quinceañera also, going on. So, I mean, there's something going on out there. And I'm not saying that we're going to run the Coliseum better than the city, because they've asked us if this passes, they want us to run it. But it's what we've been doing. You know what I mean? And another thing that the city can't do is they can't have a concert. They can't hire somebody. They can't take the risk of that. But we'll be looking at, we can rent the facility, or we can partner with people that want to have a big, event and stuff like that. And we'll have more and more stuff for people to. And
it's indoors, so you don't have to worry about rainouts. You don't have to worry about the heat during the summer, all that kind of stuff. If this bond doesn't pass, what are we looking at?
If it doesn't pass, I'm going to say it's going to, in 10 years, you're going to see a major decrease. In the next, even in the next 5 years, you're going to start seeing it.
Decrease in.
You're going to see participation. You're going to see not as many people, because there's, even from the last 10 years, and some of the negatives that we've seen, it's not much, but we are seeing negative, is because people have lost interest because they haven't been able to buy a ticket.
Negative comments or negative thoughts toward the rodeo is I can't get a ticket, it's not mine anyway, so why do I even want to pay for it?
Right. And they think that it doesn't benefit them if they do this, and like you just explained what that economic impact does to benefit them.
Right.
But people are going to be able to buy tickets, and they're going to be able to come. They're going to not be able to just buy 2. They're going to be able to buy 4, 8, whatever they need for their family, and have a good time. And I will promise that the renderings, if you haven't looked on ColiseumBond.com to look at the pictures, that when we're at Christmas break or Thanksgiving break and we're all sitting around with our families and don't have nothing to do, you're going to drive out there and look at that, because it's going to be, for $41 million, okay, we're going to double that venue, and it's going to look brand new. I mean, there's going to be some things that are the same. The blue seats are going to be the same. The box seats are going to be changed where there's more leg room in there. The floor is going to be redone. There's going to be railings. There's going to be, when you walk up, it's going to be a lot like at A&M, the baseball field. It looks just like it.
Right.
People movers are going to, you walk out, to go to your level, or there'll be gigantic elevators where you can go up to your level.
But the important thing you said, and we've seen it, I mean, I saw it happen in Del Rio, where the George Paul just kind of, when they didn't invest in it, and it was just a slow decline. And to today, to build it back up to what it used to be would be a monumental undertaking. I mean, the guys that were doing George Paul back in 1995 are doing the American at AT&T Stadium now.
That's right. You're right.
So, all right. The Coliseum Bond is on the ballot for May 3rd, the May 3rd election. Early voting is undergoing, I guess it's over. Is it over today?
I think tomorrow.
Tomorrow. So early voting for it's over tomorrow, which is Tuesday, the 29th. And then you have to wait 4 days and think about what we talked about. But I wanted to bring Justin on here so he could explain a lot of the economic details, and also where the Rodeo Association and rodeo is today. So a lot of people on Canyon Creek, for example, who've never been to the rodeo, don't understand how important this is.
Right. You bet.
So thank you for coming on, Justin.
Thank you.
Jonas with the San Angelo Rodeo Association, San Angelo Stock Show and Rodeo Association.
That's right.
Back to you guys.
In news today, late last week, 31-year-old John Michael Anthony Gonzalez was found guilty for sexually abusing 3 children. District Attorney Allison Palmer said, "We applaud the bravery of young women who had the strength to come forward and testify about their abuse. Their courage is an inspiration to us all. Our office remains committed to prosecuting child abuse and seeking to protect some of those most vulnerable members of our community, our children."
San Angelo Animal Services are on the search for the owners of 2 goats that were found near North Garrett Street and Pecos Street. The 2 goats were Gertie and Gigi are being housed at the city shelter at 3142 US 67. The owners can also contact the shelter at 325-657-4224.
And we're going to take a break, and when we come back, Paul Harris and I talk about the NFL draft. But first, here's a word from Carpet Tech.
My name is Cade Simmons. I'm the site manager here in San Angelo. What matters to our customers, I believe, is what we say is CT quality, CT experience, just making sure their needs are met, you know, taking care of their home like it was ours. You just have to keep thinking of, you know, it's never the wrong time to do the right thing. So just making sure you're taking care of what needs to be taken care of, and just knowing that they can rely on us, I think, matters to them a lot.
What's going on, everybody? James Bouligny here with my man, Paul Muad'Dib Harris.
What's up, James?
Paul, what's going on?
Not much, man. Happy to be here.
What are we talking about today?
The Denver Broncos?
The NFL draft, not
NFL
just
draft,
the Denver
right.
Broncos. We can start with Denver's draft. We're going to talk kind of about what we thought of the picks. Big Denver fan here, big Cowboy fan here. Let's just start with day one, round one. Denver took Jahdae Barron out of Texas, cornerback. What'd you think? You have Surtain, you have Riley Moss.
I mean, anybody from that Texas Longhorn defense, not a bad pick as far as I'm concerned. It seemed like...
Big Texas fan here, guys.
Yeah, well, that was the best defense in the country, I think I can say, without being too much of a homer. And it seemed like one of those Longhorns was going like every 5 or 6 picks, you know, so a lot of people were trying to go to that well. And it wasn't what I was expecting the Broncos to do, but...
Who'd you want? Who did you want them to take in that first round?
Well, I was hoping that somehow magically Ashton Genty would fall to number 20.
Never going to happen.
Right. But so I was thinking, hey, man, our biggest need is running back. That's where we would go. But I think the value was just too much there with a cornerback of that caliber. So
yeah, he's projected like a top 10 pick, one of the most talented defensive backs in the nation. Jim Thorpe Award winner last year. He's a boundary corner. He's a nickel corner. They can move him around. With Surtain under contract, this is another young guy that you can have for 4, potentially 5 years on a rookie deal. I thought it made a lot of sense just to add to that Denver defense, that just make your strength and have a tremendously strong defensive backfield. And Barron made a lot of sense to me.
Definitely.
Speaking of running back, you got one in the second round, R.J. Harvey out of UCF.
Right.
Workhorse back, sort of.
He's pretty exciting, man. I mean, I didn't know a lot about him, you know. And, of course, you know, you draft and then they start showing you the highlights. You get all pumped up, whoever it is you drafted. Man, he looked pretty explosive. You know, is he going to check every single box I saw? Okay, well, he wasn't great in pass protection or different things. Right. But I'm a big believer in Sean Payton and what he can do for us, you know, offensively. You know, if he can fill that kind of Alvin Kamara role, man, that'd be awesome, you know. And so...
You need a late second-round pick?
Yeah.
All right. I mean, what could you really... I mean, second round... He might not ever be the full-time starter, but a solid backup who can fill in and can be a workhorse if he has to be. That's a decent pick. I think he had over about 2,000 yards over the past 2 seasons.
Yeah,
he had decent numbers there at UCF. Probably one of their best backs they've put out in a while. And then a third round, y'all picked Pat Bryant out of Illinois.
Right.
6'3", 200-pound receiver.
Ran a slow 40. And so I think that docked him quite a bit. But, you know, I mean,
he put up good numbers there at Illinois, though. I mean,
he did. And, you know, sometimes I think you get too caught up on the numbers because there's lots of guys that run a fast 40 and they don't translate. You know,
right.
Jerry Rice didn't blow you away with the speed or whatever. So,
no, he didn't.
I mean, the route running and all that is great. And, again, another need. We've got to get some playmakers.
But you had Cortland Sutton and you have Marvin Mims. Get another guy never hurts and just continues to help Bo Nix out. Bo Nix need, you know, as many receivers and running backs to help him as possible.
Right.
Might as well do it. And then y'all's fourth pick, I don't know if it was the 4th round or maybe later than that, Savion Jones out of LSU, 6'5", 280.
Yeah, I'm excited about him. And, you know, you start getting farther in the draft, you don't know the guys as well, and you're just kind of trusting the scouting reports. And back-to-back LSU and Alabama defensive guys, thrilled with that. You know, even got a punter, which was, I was like, okay.
Well, they're in Denver. You can punt it.
There you go.
80 yards.
Hopefully with an awesome defense, and then get this Australian guy punting. Hopefully it'll be a good deal, you know. So I was pretty pumped with the draft. And then we even took a project tight end really late, you know. So
right. No, I like, back to Jones, I like him because he's 280 pounds, so he's probably going to be an end, but on passing edge, you can kick him inside and to that 3-tech and play around a little bit with him.
Yeah, it seemed like one of those guys that was another good value pick, kind of dropped a little bit more than, you know, so I was pretty pumped with the draft, really, you know. We're hurting because of the Russell Wilson trade, you know, so I was pretty happy with some of the maneuvering we did to get some of the picks. You know, we traded down a couple of times to be waiting for my pick, and like, we traded back. But it's probably a good thing. And overall, I thought we did a pretty good job with the draft and trying to recover from the Russell Wilson debacle. So,
yeah, speaking of pretty good, I thought the Cowboys had a pretty good draft. I was kind of sold on a receiver. I bought into the media hype, and I thought, man, the Cowboys do need a receiver. But Tedero McMillan went to the Carolina Panthers.
Right.
And I obviously thought Tyler Booker, the guard from Alabama, was a better pick. And when I stepped down off the chair and away from the rope, I was like, all right, let me think about this. Brian Schottenheimer likes to run the ball. He brought in Clayton Adams from Arizona, did great things with Arizona's run game. Then they brought in Connor Riley from Kansas State, one of the more well-respected offensive line coaches in the country. So you have three guys who are big on running the ball. You brought in Booker to help solidify that guard position. Everybody says guard was a bad value pick at 12. You might be able to say that, but the Colts took Quentin Nelson at 6 a few years ago, and I don't remember hearing that.
Right.
You know, and there's always tackles that kicked into guard who have good careers. If you found a guy in Tyler Booker and he can go out and have a Zach Martin, I know that's kind of high in the sky right now because Zach Martin was outstanding for as long as he was, but if you can solidify that right guard position with somebody who's going to be there for 10 years, you don't have to worry about it. It doesn't matter where you picked him. And I think a lot of people are saying it was a bad pick because Matthew Golden was available and there was a receiver available. Oh, they have to have a receiver. Oh, they need a running back. Go get a Marion Hampton because Genty wasn't there. But Hampton at 12 probably wouldn't have been the best value pick either. And like I said, they picked Zach Martin at like 16 in 2014. There's not a big difference between the 12th pick and the 16th pick, especially in a draft where there's maybe 10 blue chip first round prospects.
Right. I like it because he just seems like such a high floor guy, you know, and I know that it's not the same as getting a tackle or a splashy wide receiver, but I mean, the highest rated guard in the country, he just seems like somebody that you know is going to be able to be plugged in and be a really good player. And so I'm a fan of the pick. You know, I know it's not a sexy, splashy pick, and I get, oh man, Matthew Golden would be super exciting, but to me, this is one of those picks where down the road you're going to be like, I'm really glad that we got that. That was a good pick, you know, and what maybe not exciting at the time, but I feel like he's a pretty much a can't miss guy. May not be a star, but he's going to be a solid starter, I feel like.
I mean, he was a team captain in Alabama.
Right.
He's a good leader. He's going to hold guys accountable. He's a road grader, mauler. That was what Will Hernandez was when he came out of UTEP, and that was the guy everybody was saying Cowboys should pick up because he played at Arizona under Clayton Adams. Well, you basically got Will Hernandez in a much younger, less worn-out body.
Yeah.
So, great pick. I thought solid pick. But the day two picks from 2 and 3 were outstanding to me. You have Donovan Ezeraku out of Boston College. He had 16.5 sacks last season. Pass rush specialist. But he's like 6'2", 250 pounds, 245 pounds around there. It kind of reminds me of you can just kind of play him wherever. I think he's more of an outside linebacker. I think they're looking at an end, which you can just, if you can move him around and move Parsons around as well, it's just going to create havoc on that defense.
Right.
For the offense.
And when you guys play like Parsons, that's what you want.
Right. I've been saying, man, we need somebody to complement Parsons for a long time. And now that we've got Ezraku, I think he's going to complement him well. The next pick was Siobhan Revel Jr. out of East Carolina. Probably would have been a first-round pick. Tore his ACL, 6'2", 200 pounds, runs a 4.4. Great pickup. Might start the season on PUP. I saw somewhere that he might start on PUP. But when you look at the Cowboy depth chart at corner, Trayvon Diggs might not start the season.
Right.
You got Deron Bland. You got Kyer Elam you just traded for. Kalen Carson was rookie last year. Just a whole bunch of uncertainty in that defensive backfield for the Cowboys. Solid pick. Those top 3 picks were all like fringe first round guys.
Right.
I'd heard Ezraku in the first round quite a bit leading up to the draft. So they got 3 really good value picks there. And then we went to Texas and picked up Jaden Blue.
Heck yeah.
He's a speed guy. A little bit of lightning because later on we picked up Thunder and Phil Maffa, 240-pound running back. Had 1,000 yards at Clemson, though. I think those two are going to be great. We picked up Javonte Williams from Denver, who's a free agent. We got Miles Sanders. So we got Hunter Lupke as well, and Deuce Vaughn. So we have some competition at running back. And with the commitment to running the ball, it's going to be an exciting training camp battle for those running backs. In the 5th round, we traded up with our 2nd pick to go get Shamar James out of Florida. He's a linebacker, sideline to sideline. He's chasing down plays down the field. Good blitzer. I'm excited about him. Probably more special teams guy at the moment. But with our linebackers, it seems like we've always picked up guys who had injuries, and Overshown might not start the season because he got hurt late. So Shamar James made a lot of sense. And then Johnny Cornelius was another pick that the Cowboys made. He was a tackle for Oregon, and everything I've heard is he's got all the material. You just need somebody with the right tools to put it together. Could potentially be a pretty good swing tackle for the Cowboys in the future if everything goes according to plan. And then they picked up 2 big defensive tackles. Toana, Toia is his last name. I think he's like 350 pounds. Prototypical nose tackle. And then Tommy, I'm not even a King sub. How do you pronounce that?
I'm not sure. I'm not even going to try.
A King Besot out of Maryland, 300-pound guy. They saw something in them that they really liked. The one thing they didn't address was receiver. Picked up Josh Kelly from Texas Tech in undrafted free agency. They picked up Trayshawn Henderson from Oregon. Got a couple receivers, and there's also a couple of receivers in free agency they can go pick up anyway. They can go get Amari Cooper, bring him back, maybe Keenan Allen, bring him in. Just, if you bring in one of those guys, all of a sudden, that first round, no receiver in the first round doesn't affect you as much. Because then you'd have CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, Keenan Allen, Jake Ferguson, and then you have Jalen Tolbert in the 3rd receiver slot. You have Jonathan Mingo, who we spent our 4th round pick on. And I was really excited. Pretty solid draft for the Cowboys. I was excited about it.
Yeah, I think so. They got a lot of holes to fill, but it was just a couple years ago that this team was, were they 12-5 just a couple years ago? So,
they won 12 games in 3 straight seasons.
Right.
So, just getting back to basics, trying to rebuild the great line of Dallas and get a good set of running backs behind them, keep Dak Prescott standing up, and it'll be exciting to see where they go from here. The 2 defensive guys, Ezra Kun Revel, they could make impacts. And
it's hard to believe how reckless some people can be and how hard they fight against real victims. You need a partner who consistently beats the giants and who will never, ever flinch.
in weather, the National Weather Service has issued a tornado watch for Tom Green and 12 other counties until 11 p.m. tonight. Right now, though, it's 91 degrees outside with a high 92 and a low tonight at 64. There is a slight chance at some rain as well.
Tomorrow, the high is 88, and in the afternoon, we have a 20% chance of rain. Tomorrow night, the low is 64, and those rain chances jump up to 50%.
On Wednesday, the high will be 87, the low Wednesday night will be 56. We still have about 30% chance of storms throughout the day on Wednesday.
And we will be right back after a quick word from Conno's Diamonds and Coins.
When it comes to unique pieces you can't find anywhere else, Conno's Diamonds and Coins is your one-stop shop. With over 24 years in the diamond and coin industry, Conno's Diamonds and Coins is West Texas's choice for diamonds, jewelry, coins, silver, and gold. Owner Bill Conno stands by his work and offers free consultations, including estate jewelry. Don't just trust anyone with your valuables. Come see the staff at Conno's at 1016 West Beauregard in San Angelo.
Thank you for watching the Live Daily News Show.
The only locally owned news show in the Concho Valley.
Go like us on Facebook, X, and other social media platforms.
And download the San Angelo Live mobile app.
For the live team here, I'm James Bouligny.